All right, guys, welcome back to the podcast. You're here with your host live, Mr. Roberts, the coach of GainXGrow Programs, Fitness, and Education. So we're here going to talk to you today about why your mind matters. And last week we talked about optimization using supplements, using different protocols in fitness. So today I'm going to really focus on nurturing mental wellness for physical fitness. Okay, so we're going to focus on that mental state, mental well-being, but how it's going to benefit you with fitness. All right, so without further ado, I just want to make sure that we highlight the interconnectedness with mindful and mental health because the connections are very important. When you think of yourself in a positive light, you're usually going to be more mentally stably feeling better. And if you're looking at yourself in a negative light, you're probably going to have that impact your mental health as long as with your mental well-being. So I'm going to really tie in and go back and forth between the importance of mental health, but also with physical fitness and how important it is to making your mental health, your well-being feel amazing, making sure you feel ready to go and conquer the world, ready to do anything you really want to do and accomplish. It all starts with the mentality and also your well-being and how you feel. So without further of me talking, I'm going to go and introduce some of the four things that you want to really focus on of understanding the mind and muscle connection. As people talk about when you're working out, you're not just lifting weights, doing squats, all these different things without thinking about it. Because, sometimes even if you're not thinking about it, you're going to start feeling that burn in that muscle that you're actually working and focusing on. But really, really thinking and taking time to think about, okay, if I'm working on my bicep, I'm really focusing on just thinking about that bicep, whether it's the growth, whether, I'm feeling that burn, whether I'm like, okay, I can do another set. How do I feel? So one thing I want to talk about is like looking at some of the research and the important link between mental health and your physical fitness. The more mentally healthy you are, probably the better physically fit you're going to be because you just care about how you feel, how you look, your health, your social connections, possibly your business connections, focusing on how much money you're making, maybe how well you're doing in life, just winning, that winning mentality, right? How are you focused on being a winner? So those are one of the key things. And then one of the key things of being a focused winner is you're really going to take care of your health as well. So that's why the connection between the two are quite important. Now, I'm going to discuss how stress and anxiety and other mental challenges can impact physical performance and overall health. So think about this really simple. If you are feeling like you're stressed out because of finances, you can't afford it, you're stuck. If you're thinking about maybe you're overweight by 100 pounds and you're like, hey, you know what? I can't do this, or I don't feel good when I put on my clothes, or I feel like when I go outside, I go for a walk or even a jog, I feel like I'm going to die, whatever it is, you are going to have a much more poor lack of physical health. That is your mental clarity. Your mental clarity is not clear. When you're visioning yourself, focusing on a goal, like myself today, my goal was, okay, I'm going to put out content for everyone to make sure that they feel, I can accomplish something today. I want to focus on mental well-being because I've had a lot of people talk to me about, well, Roy, you're so good at the physical fitness side. Can you tell us more about what your mentality is? How do you get up every day to make sure you're going to the gym? How do you feel motivated to do these things? Well, the motivation that only comes from me thinking, hey, this is what I need because for me to function well, I need to be physically active. I also think about my discipline. I also think about where I want to be, my focus, my drive, what I want to do in the future, whether it's with my family, whether it's with my loved ones, where do I want to be? I really focus on that and I envision that and I would just break it down to simple, smaller steps, right? So every day I'm going to move. Every day I'm going to, do something physically challenging or do something that's going to keep me physically fit, right? But also on the other side of things, mentally, what am I doing? I'm getting those 7 to 9 hours of sleep, making sure I'm taking care of my body, making sure my hygiene's right, making sure that I'm looking good, feeling good, being great, helping others. Those are all things that are helping you with your mental health as well. So they go hand in hand. You can't separate the two because once you try to separate the two, you're going to come to a clash or a collapse that's going to really hurt you. So one thing I want you to focus on and think about is if you're really struggling with your health, think about your mental well-being. How is that really feeling right now? Is it connected? Do you see a connection? Or are you kind of just oblivious and like, hey, I'm feeling great. I'm eating, whatever I want. I'm eating junk processed food and I'm feeling amazing. Well, that's good for you, but how are you impacting your relationships? Maybe it's great, but how are you impacting your health, right? Are you feeling like you can actually do 10 push-ups without breaking a sweat? Do you feel like you can go for a kilometer run without, feeling like you're dead, right? Think about those things. And if that is something like you and you're not feeling well, or you're not feeling that type of mental clarity, you're not feeling the best in your mental well-being state, then I'm talking to you. If you're the other side, you're feeling great, you're looking great, you're doing both things, you're probably happy, excited, elated, ready to kill the day, ready to make sure you're making the right moves, business moves, networking, socializing. That is awesome. I'm still talking to you because this is going to benefit both sides. Now, I just want to go a little bit deeper and put a question out there for everybody. Okay, and I wrote this down. It says, how does stress affect the body's ability to recover from exercise? So think about that. How do you think stress affects the body to recover during exercise? Well, for me, when I'm stressed, I tend to not sleep as much. I tend to worry and think about maybe the past or think about what's going to happen in the future, right? Sometimes I tend to, be restless, or, sometimes I'm not focused on, locking in on something that I should be. Like, for example, starting this YouTube channel, sharing some, information with my audience, because maybe I used to feel like, oh, I can't do it. Or maybe I don't want to be vulnerable out there. But now I'm really locked in. That means my mental clarity is on a whole nother level because I know how great I can be, right? And even further in pushing myself. And that's having, people behind you, your team that are looking out for you, all those different areas and aspects. So one key thing to answer that question is stress. Everyone talks about it. Stress cannot be only bad. It can also be good, right? The stresses that push you. Remember, maybe the stress of you feeling of being broke, right? Is pushing you to want to get away from being that. The stress of being overweight, right? Pushing you to get back in shape. Whatever the stresses that push us to move to different countries because, of certain things that happen in there. Maybe you can see the light, the writing on the wall, and maybe you see I have better opportunities somewhere else. Whatever that is, that stress triggers the release of cortisol. Right? And we'll talk about that later on another podcast, but cortisol can be good and it can be bad. And we need cortisol to survive. Don't think it's a bad thing. Don't demonize it. We do need cortisol. But that cortisol can interfere with muscle repair, growth, and also leading to decreased performance and increased risk of injury, which makes sense, right? So if I'm having less sleep and I'm going to go to the gym and do a big workout, I probably could end up injuring myself a little bit more easily, or because my muscles and stuff have not recovered from the night before. Maybe I'm going into work stressed. I'm not going to perform well, and maybe in a big meeting that I have to do, or maybe I'm not going to perform well when I'm playing a certain sport. It could be because of that stress, lack of sleep, lack of mental clarity, lack of mental well-being. Those are all different areas of where we can actually struggle with stress. Now in this area, I'm going to really focus on exploring mindfulness techniques. So there's many different mindfulness techniques that we talk about. People talk about, box breathing, meditation, walking meditation, stretching, yoga, but those are still physical, right? But there's other things you can do. Really focus and locking in on, what can I do to really feel mindful? And maybe mindful eating. I think a lot of the times we just eat, for sustenance, or, do this because it feels and tastes good. But sometimes we should maybe take a second and say, what am I actually eating? Have a food journal, right? Focus on how good is this food tasting? How am I nourishing myself? And all those different things. Is the water refreshing? That's another way to look at the mindfulness state. One of the key things also you can do is really get, into being aware of your surroundings. People talk about grounding, walking barefoot and maybe in some sand, grass, whatever it is. There's so many different areas, and I'm not going to touch in too much on it, but there's so much things you can do to really be mindful. Even if it's taking like a minute out of your day and just sitting there, being still, looking at one spot on the wall, or looking at a picture, interpreting it. Maybe it's, through different areas of being mindful. In many different cases, prayer. It can be different things. That's why there's a lot of different areas that you can be mentally clear. Maybe it's being with your pet or your animals, really just taking a second to enjoy the greenery that you see outside of your window, or maybe go outside for a walk. That's how I like to do my mindfulness, is go for walks and I start to think of many different ideas. So being mindful is not only just like thinking about, okay, how do I feel? It's not only thinking about how am I doing? It's not only thinking about where am I going? It's thinking about also, what do I want to get from this situation? What do I want to get from this moment? What do I want to get from myself? And see and check in on myself and say, hey, are you okay? Because a lot of people may ask you, are you okay? But sometimes you might not even know, hey, am I okay or not? You just say, yeah, I'm good, right? Most people say, yeah, I'm all right. How are you? Focus on really how much you feel, and you're going to see when you start to tune into yourself how much more happier you're going to be with yourself. Now, also some other practices besides like box breathing, and you can do like body scans, so many different things. Some other things you can do to benefit, in incorporating mindfulness techniques into daily routines for stress reduction. You can also, some people do cold plunges or ice baths. Some people can do, the sauna, which is a great one that I like to do myself, just to sit. And that's something that gets you uncomfortable, but also it makes you feel great after you've done it. Even in the moment, sometimes you may feel awesome when you do these things. Doing some of these things are amazing for you. And it has the benefits of just really helping you reduce your stress, especially after a workout. I like to go into the sauna because it helps me feel like my muscles are starting to get to relax. The blood's going to start flowing through the rest of my body. And sometimes even if I do like a sprint or a run or if I'm doing cardio, I like to go into a cold plunge because that helps bring down my cortisol levels, helps me kind of feel still within my body. It is something that's very testing, but something that's good as well for you to try and do. Now, I have a question for you. And can mindfulness meditation improve athletic performance? So thinking about mindfulness, meditation, can that help you, improve your athletic performance or your focus? And a lot of you are probably saying, yes, it can. And it is true, it can. Because think about that the research that suggests is regular mindfulness practice when you kind of envision what you're trying to do before you do it. Whether you're a basketball player, a football player, maybe you're a CEO, maybe you're even a teacher, whatever you're doing, envisioning your process and the journey you're going to take, it's going to set you up to enhance the concentration, resilience, and overall performance in whatever you do. So whatever you're going to think of, let's say I have a big meeting coming up tomorrow, and I'm really going to say, hey, I can see myself saying these certain things, delivering it this way, being, confident when I do it. I'm already giving a stimulation of how it's going to look, and it's going to be great because I know it's going to be great. Now, this segment, I'm going to kind of focus on practical application and for mental wellness. So, thinking about giving you practical tips to integrate into your mindfulness and fitness routines in everyday life. So, some things you can actually do, I mentioned some of them, going for walks. Great way to get more steps, as your coaches may say, or people may tell you, get more steps. But also just when you're walking, think about your environment. Think about your situation, whether you're walking your dog, talking to your loved ones, right? Having those conversations, being real in depth, asking them those questions. How are you doing today? What's going on? Or if you're by yourself, put on a podcast. Or if you're just maybe in somewhere where it's quite, full of nature, no podcast. Listen to, the sounds around you. That is an amazing thing to do. Another way you can do for mindfulness, like I said, maybe going for a swim. Some people like to relax through swimming. Some people like to relax through riding, running. Some people believe in that as well. Whatever you like to do that. And that's a great practice. It's going to keep you feeling fit, not only, but also mentally fit and focusing on that well-being and wellness as well. Now, another way you can look at it is for enhancing motivation. For me, what I usually do is that when I'm working on motivation, I look at, like I said at the start, where do I want to be? My loved ones, how can I take care of them and myself? How am I going to, make sure I'm being the best provider that I can be? And I start to envision, okay, what are my steps that I'm going to do it? And this is what keeps driving me. Even in those times when I'm feeling tired, feeling exhausted, I'm going to push myself because I don't want to be, you know, whether it's broke or I don't want to be someone who's struggling. And nothing against people that, like to be there or who are in those situations because of other circumstances. I'm just saying that I have the opportunities, I have the resources, so I'm going to make sure I use them to make sure that I can better myself, right? And help those around me that I can help. Whether I'm trying to help you with some content or give you guys some understanding, I'm trying to do that the best I can. Now, the other area I want to talk about is some exercises that you can do, right? So some people talk about, yoga nidra, talking about just regular yoga, talking about meditation, talking about many different things. There's so many different things that you can do that I'm going to share in just my little bit of my routines of what I do for people. For example, my mobility routine. That's something that I do, even though mobility people are like, oh, that's not really mindful. But for me, that's where I feel like, I loosen up certain areas, my joints of my body. For example, I might do a couple stretches, long form stretches, holding for 30 seconds to a minute. And that really makes me feel great after I've done it. But before then, maybe I feel like all that tension throughout the week of, lifting weights, being in meetings, talking to different people, that feels like that tension builds up in my body. So sometimes even just holding onto a bar, and doing just a dead hang, you feel that release through your body. So those are different things that I like to do just to kind of relax. And for some of you, you may do many different things, and I would love to hear about that. So post it in the chat or the comments below. I'd love to know what you do, and maybe we could share that in the community as well. Now, going a little further, we're just going to kind of focus on just reminding ourselves, how important it is to just really take a second to be mindful and think about what areas do I want to improve on. So some other things you can do is mindful listening to people who have a soothing voice, maybe podcasts. We talked about ebooks. We can talk about meditation. Journaling is another great one, writing things down. So I do that quite a bit when I'm taking notes, whether it's listening to a podcast or even just myself. I like to write a little bit of poetry. Who knew? Whether it's rhythmic poetry, just things that are coming in my life, and I just kind of put it into words. That's very important for us. Box breathing. So I'm going to show you an example. When you box breathe, you breathe in through your nose for about 4 to 8 seconds. So, and then out through the mouth. So really strong out through the mouth. So in through the nose, out through the mouth. So that's a really good way to kind of just relax the body and really, focus on pushing yourself to kind of just calm down the nerves. If you're in a high stress situation, or even when you're working out, that's how I kind of bring my heart rate down, especially when I do that. So I'm going to take a little bit of a little bit of break out of our podcast, just to kind of remind you and all the listeners out there to connect with the GainXGrow Fitness Professional podcast. You can reach out to us for personalized coaching and support. You can reach out to me at www.gainxgrow.com. I'll put it down in the show notes below. We also have the Instagram at GainXGrow, and you can reach out to me in there as well. If you're looking for some help, just for some tips, just some understandings, how do we run our protocol and our team, I'll let you know through there. All right. So moving on, and thank you for that little bit of a break. I would like to talk to you guys about overcoming mental barriers. So one of the key things is addressing the common mental barriers to fitness and wellness, such as self-doubt, perfectionism, and fear of failure. So these are things that we can put to just real life examples. Like, for example, learning how to drive a car. Some people are afraid of failure when they're doing it. Some people have self-doubt. Some people are perfectionists, right? So we have those three types of parents as well. When you're driving with them, they may say, oh, don't do this. You need to have this on. You need to have that on. But that is just their mental wellness state, because they feel they want to make sure you're going to be the perfect driver, just like they envision themselves being. But then sometimes they don't realize that might be hindering you from being the best driver and may turn you into someone who has self-doubt or having fear of failure. So looking back onto the fitness side of things, when you may go into, the gym for the first time, or maybe when you're going to go into play a sport for the first time, you have those different types of things. I'm a perfectionist because I've been, ready for this my whole life. Or you might be somebody who has a fear of failure. Whatever it is that you have, you need to be able to overcome that. And there's ways to overcome this. Some ways to do that is, for example, cultivating a positive mindset. So building that mental resilience. So one thing you can do to build that mental resilience is practice when there's no one around, right? Educate yourself on the steps of how to be better in that sport, or better in that, in gym training, or in, learning a new concept, learning a new language. Practice. It takes hours and hours and hours, but repetition is great because it's going to help you be greater at what you do. The more you practice a skill, the better you're going to get at it, no matter what. So for me, being on the camera, if I don't do it enough, I'm not going to be good at it. But if I do it enough and I get used to it, and I know the nuances and the things that people want to hear, or the intonations that I need to say, I'm going to get better at it, no matter what. Anyone can do it. You can do it as well. So having that positive reinforcement and knowing how to be better at things, that's one thing you can do. Now, another thing you can do, to kind of have that positive mindset, is build around people around you. So maybe having a gym buddy. We're going to the gym for the first time. Hey, let's go do this together. We should work out. We're both, trying to get in better shape. I'll be your gym partner, right? Another thing is having a coach, having a mentor, someone to kind of coach you who's maybe an expert in that area or advanced in that area, to really help you feel confident working out with that person, or following a plan, or making sure that, hey, you know what? I'm going to do this with X, Y, and Z, this person, because they're going to help me get to that next level where I'm going to feel confident in the gym, right? So there's so many different things you can do. You just have to choose the best one for yourself. So moving a little bit further, I'm going to emphasize the importance of self-compassion As you know, self-compassion is very important. You can't be too hard on yourself, but you also have to realize that I know I can do this. It's going to be hard. Best things don't come in life for free. They don't come easily. They come with hard work, dedication, motivation, everything that you have under the sun. You have to work for it, right? No matter what. No one can tell you anything different. For me to be even living in a space, I need to pay for it. How am I going to get paid for it? I need to put in work for it, right? So if you want to get that body or that aesthetic that you want, you need to work for it. It's going to take lots of hours. It's going to take lots of time. It's going to take lots of pain. It's going to take lots of, money to invest in yourself. But once you invest into yourself, you're going to see the benefits are going to give you back so many more things that are going to help you be better, right? So think of those things, self-compassion, but also celebrating your progress and not just the outcomes that you're going to be trying to get. So let's say I'm trying to aim in 90 days, I want to have 10 pounds of muscle. Let's say you don't get to 10, but you get 5 pounds. Celebrate that, but then look at what worked and what didn't. Maybe I was eating like a thief a little bit on those last few weeks of my program. Maybe I wasn't eating enough protein on those times. Maybe I was, socializing a bit too much, having too much to drink, whatever it is. Those are things you need to make sure you self-assess on yourself and then build on it and be better. Now, I have another question segment of the day. How can mindfulness help you with body image issues? So how can mindfulness help you with body issues? So think about those things. How can mindfulness help you with body image issues? So I think there's a key thing that we think about here when we think about body issues. Like we all have parts of our body that we really love, right? Or maybe in the gym, it's easy for us to, grow or maintain or whatnot. And then we have areas of our body that, seem to lag a little bit or you need to work on them a lot. So for example, self-disclosure, for me, mine would be, okay, working on probably building some bigger calves, because for me, my calves are not as big as the rest of my body is, even though I work on them as much as I can. They're not to the area that I would like them to be. But I know mentally what I can do to not feel like I got to wear long pants or whatever like that in the gym. I'm going to continue to work and push and work the hell out of my calves, right? That's what I'm going to do. And even though my calves may not grow to the size that I would like them to grow, I know that there's different areas and biologically and genetically that it may not happen, but it doesn't mean my calves are not strong. And I know this, and I'm fighting for all the people with small calves out there. But you know what it is? It's just, making sure you're pushing yourself to be the best person that you can be. Now, another thing that you want to really focus on is mindfulness encourages acceptance and appreciation of the body as it is, fostering a healthier relationship with oneself and reducing negative self-talk. So see what I just did there? I showed you a prime example of, reducing that negative talk and giving yourself that positive talk and knowing that, hey, it's okay where you're at just now. Work even harder that you want to be even better, right? Or be okay with where you're at and say, hey, you know what? I'm here. I'm going to get to where I need to go, but I may have to work a little bit harder, but it doesn't matter. I'm focused on my goals, tunnel vision. I'm not worried about anyone else's, right? So those are the key things you need to really focus on. Now, the last thing, okay, I'm going to invite you guys to submit questions and share with your own experiences with mindfulness and mental wellness. Okay, so I'm going to get you guys to share that down in the chat or share it down in the comments below. You can even email them to me, like I said, at GainXGrow@gmail.com. And I'll just like to share these on our next podcast, our next segment. And I'll give shout outs too if you like. Just make sure you say your name and leave it in the comments below. And I want to address also a few new listener questions as well for next week and provide some insights and practical advice. So I'll do that as well in our segment next week. And some closing thoughts for you guys on just the importance of prioritizing mental well-being and mental health in the pursuit of fitness goals is very crucial. If you want to accomplish your goals, be the best person you can be, you really need to make sure you're focused on that unique aspect of your mental health and clarity and the mental wellness that you're going to need to really prioritize pushing yourself in the gym, in your sport, in your business, in whatever you're doing in school, and be that best person that you can be, but you also got to believe it. You can say, I'm going to do all these things, but that's going to burn you out, or you might not even get started. You're going to keep talking, but less talk, more action is really key. So really pushing yourself, believing in yourself, having not only dedication, but motivation and discipline. Discipline is something that we're going to have to talk about in another segment, but being disciplined is, for example, doing it when it sucks and you don't want to do it. That's what it means to be disciplined. You still are pushing yourself. You're showing up every day. You're going through the sets, the reps. You're going through the lectures, the conversations, the meetings, having those difficult conversations, not only with yourself, but with others. Make sure you're protecting your energy and make sure you're taking care of yourself. Anyways, I just really want to thank you guys for listening to this episode. I encourage you guys to subscribe to the podcast below. Make sure you hit that like or that subscribe button. And I'm looking forward to giving you guys some more health and fitness and mental well-being tips and tricks in the further episodes to come ahead. And I want to remind you guys, please connect to the GainXGrow Fitness podcast and personalized training system that we have running for you. We'll have it in the link below, which you can look at some of the programs we have. And without further ado, thank you guys very much. See you soon.